Our topic for the webinar today is Marriage Ministry Reimagined, from Sacramental Prep to Lifelong Discipleship. What could marriage ministry look like? What could Prep for Marriage look like in your parish? And how could it better engage young couples? How could it better engage people who are married for a while, either newly married or maybe they're becoming empty nesters? Marriage is a place that we are called to help accompany people in their journey. And why is this such an important question today? Well, I think we all know that for decades, the institution of marriage has been suffering, struggling. And I have to say, we haven't done a great job of helping. Most parishes have a prep for marriage and they might have a divorce care. But what do we offer in between there? But it's also really important today because, as you may know and see, there's a lot of young adults coming back to the church. There's people coming to get married for the first time. They desire to get married in the church. But my question is, when those young people, those young couples do come back to the church, what will they experience? Will it be something that engages them and is helpful and inspiring in their journey? Or will it be something where they say, well, I guess it's not any different than I remember? Is it a hoop they just have to jump through? Or is it an enriching experience that helps their spiritual journey and helps their practical life? That's what we're going to be talking about today. That's what we hope for all of the Prep for Marriage and marriage ministries out there. We're going to start today with a conversation that I had yesterday with Dr. Michael DiPaolo. He is a clinical psychologist and a certified Imago Dei relationship therapist, which is a great therapy ministry you might check into. And he's in private practice in Los Angeles, California. But he also leads the Prep for Marriage and Marriage Enrichment Ministry at St. Monica's Catholic Community in Santa Monica, California, which you've probably heard me mention before if you've been on these webinars. That parish really is the birthplace of great Catholic parishes. They have marriage info sessions. They have a great Prep for Marriage program. And then they have a ministry called First Five that helps couples in their first 5 years of marriage. So we're going to go now to a conversation that I recorded with him yesterday, and hopefully he's going to be able to join and join us later for Q&A later on in the webinar. Let's go now to my conversation with Dr. Michael DiPaolo. I'm here with Dr. Michael DiPaolo, aka Dr. D. And Michael, thank you for joining us from lovely, perfect, sunny and 72 Santa Monica, California.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here with you on this beautiful sunny day in Southern California.
Well, most of us are wishing we were there, but you've been serving there with the Prep for Marriage Ministry for 25 years, which is astounding.
Yes.
And I'm sure you've learned a lot during that time. I'm sure that your Prep for Marriage and your marriage accompaniment has evolved a lot over that time. But tell us what it was like when you landed there. What was the Prep for Marriage experience?
So when I first started at St. Monica, there was now we have an information network couples come, but there was none of that. So couples would come in, they would just meet with the priest secretary, they'd set up a meeting, the priest would tell them to take this focus inventory, they didn't really know what it was. And then after that, they got set up to meet with myself or the other marriage counselor that was there to meet with them. So we would meet with them. They'd also go off to engagement camp our weekend. And then, another follow-up meeting with the priest to do all the paperwork and all that stuff. And then if they were getting married at our parish, then, there'd be a few more steps, to help them. Many of them were getting prepared to get to marry elsewhere. So that was the case. That was pretty much it. Those 2 meetings with the priest, one meeting with myself, with the other counselor, and then they'd do engagement counter.
So that's probably pretty typical for most parishes. Most probably don't have a therapist involved, which is already a great start, but you've grown it so much since then. You mentioned the marriage information night, which is something that I sat in on one night. Tell us about the marriage information night, who it's for, and then what does the night look like?
Yeah, we have a marriage information night once a month. So all couples that just want to marry or have us prepare them for marriage are invited to come. And this has evolved over time as well. So initially it started out as just that. It's like we're just giving information. And so the priest would talk in preparation, his secretary would talk. We had a director of worship and liturgy that would talk. I would talk, but it was really more just geared toward here. We're going to give you a lot of information. Over time, what's evolved is really the purpose of that meeting is really more about engagement than it is information. And our goal is to really engage them. And so we do it in a number of ways. I mean, one is simply by having them interact a little bit just with their partner. They come, things they appreciate, what they're looking for in the process. So we're kind of engaging them, because letting them know that we're interested in what they're looking for. We will not just sort of talk about what we do, but really give them the message that we're here to help prepare them, not just for the wedding, but for a lifetime together in marriage. It's another big aspect that's evolved over time, as well as involving at least one couple to also be there who've gone through the process, in the last few years. So they're not just hearing from, all these folks on staff saying, this is this wonderful thing we do, but they're hearing from a couple who's saying, yeah, we went through this process a year ago, 2 years ago. This is what was really great about it. Here's some tips. And so again, the whole goal has really evolved to be one of just engagement. And it's the information is sort of a byproduct of that.
And when I went, the wedding coordinator was there.
Yeah.
You were there, priests were there, and people joined, some via Zoom and some in person, right?
That's right. Yeah. So especially during the pandemic, we switched and we obviously went all on Zoom. And then whenever we came out of the pandemic, we just have been hybrid ever since then.
So
pre-pandemic, it was all in person.
Yeah, you make it as easy as possible for people to come to this marriage information night. And do they have to be a member of your parish to get married at your parish?
No, our mission is really to welcome and help couples. And if they're seeking marriage in the church, we want to support that. We want to welcome that. Yeah. So we will get couples, maybe they have a connection or they grew up in LA, but now they live in New York, Chicago, you name it. They come to marriage information on Zoom. And it's great. We want to welcome you in. They haven't been connected with a parish at all lately or anything. No, we welcome them in and really see this opportunity to engage them and connect them in the life of the church.
I just want to highlight that because I have known a lot of leaders at parishes that are kind of like yours. Some would call it a destination parish. Mm-hmm. It's a historic parish. It's a beautiful church. You're a few blocks mm-hmm. from the beach. And a lot of leaders at these destination parishes are actually trying to discourage people from getting married there because, we just have so much to do already. And as you and I talked previous to this webinar, we talked about how the 3 times someone is most likely to actually take a step and grow in their faith is when they get married, the baptism of a child, or the loss of a loved one. And so here we have people coming to us saying we want to engage with the parish, and sometimes people are discouraging them because of it's more work for us. And that's not your view at all, right? Share more about how you see this as a chance to help people engage in their faith.
Yeah, no, that's not our view at all. And I say, sadly, we get a lot of couples who said, we tried, we went to our local church, we went here, we went there. They said, no, I'm sorry, you're not registered, or you're living together. So they just don't get the help. And other churches will literally tell them, call St. Monica to yield to it. And so we just voice an opportunity to evangelize to them and welcome them in. We've had so many couples who are now just a part of our parish because, as you mentioned, that was their own trip. And because they felt welcome and connected, they stayed connected. I won't go into the whole story. Monsignor Ferguson, our pastor, tells this great story every marriage information night about a couple where the gentleman was Jewish and, the woman was, great cradle Catholic. And, he said he came to the information night, had no interest in getting married in the church. After the information, I said, okay, it's pretty good. Let's give it a shot. And he said, and, it became engaged. She came back in tears after their wedding and honeymoon and said, you're the first parish that said yes. And so ever since then, Monsignor, our pastor, said, no, we're the church of yes. That's what we are. We're the church of yes. Come on in. We want to make it work. We can't do everything. We can't, but we'll work with you to make it possible. And again, so many folks, that's been their first entree. A lot of interfaith, because more and more couples, as we know, are interfaith marriages. And so that non Catholic party feels welcome, whether they're other Christian, Jewish, of no faith. We welcome them into our community. And it's just, it's beautiful when you see that. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, and I know Monsignor Torgerson, and for those who don't, I just want to emphasize it's not the church of yes because just anything goes. It's a parish of yes because they want to take any opportunity they can to help people encounter Christ and grow in their faith. And it's different baby steps for different people, and you never know what it's going to lead to. And, we have this saying that, today people need to belong before they believe. And as they belong, they're surrounded by other disciples and they encounter Christ and they encounter people that have a living faith, and their faith grows out of that. And I see that happening, in your marriage prep program.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know the numbers, but every year in along during marriage prep, several members are also doing OCIA, you probably count. And so it's a great kind of overlap, seeing them go through that process while they're also engaged in moving into marriage. Again, because of exactly what you said, it's this one step at a time. Let's engage them and let's welcome them into the church.
Yeah, I have my own story from your marriage information night, and I shared it with you, but I think everyone needs to hear it. As Dr. D said, they don't just talk about what you have to do to get married there. They talk about why. Why do they have you do this inventory? Why do they have you go on this retreat? Why do they have you meet with a mentor couple? And they said, what statistics show is when couples do this, they are astronomically more likely to succeed in marriage 3 years, 6 years, 9 years down the road when they lay this kind of foundation. And at the marriage information night that I was at, there was a time at the end where you opened it up for questions. And this gentleman in the back, who looked to be kind of my age, it probably wasn't his first marriage prep, raised his hand and he said, I don't have a question, but I have a comment. And, when you're the speaker and someone says, I don't have a question, I have a comment, usually it's not good.
You're bracing. Yeah, we're bracing.
Yeah. But this guy said, we came here because it was something we had to do to jump through the hoops to get married in your beautiful church. But after listening to you talk, I realized that you care about us and we want to be a part of this community. Isn't that what we're all looking for? Like we always say, well, couples just get married and then they leave and they don't come back. Well, why? What did they experience when they did come? And sometimes that's what makes all the difference. So tell us, after this info session, this information night, tell us about, just in brief, what your prep for marriage program looks like.
Great question. So after that initial night, I just frame it as there's the wedding prep side and there's what I'll call the marriage prep side. Okay, because we want them to have that group. So after our meeting, I'll say the first step is they're going to meet with the priest. They can set their date. They can do all the things that the priest needs to do to kind of start walking into the process. And then there's 3 components of what I'll call the marriage prep side. One is they'll take the focus inventory, which is a great online inventory they take. It's a great conversation starter. A lot of times the couples are afraid they think it's a test they have to pass. It's like, no, it's just a conversation starter. Don't worry. And then they'll have 2 meetings with myself and my colleague as who are marriage therapists. So we do full time. And so we'll meet with the couples at least twice. That's evolved over time too. It was once when we first started. We got twice. We'll ask them to go to the Engage Encounter weekend. And then we've also developed an in-house program called The Foundation, which is a workshop that I created. Really phones in a lot of the communication because you're over and over communication and another one reason couples divorce. And so it really teaches them these state-of-the-art imago dialogue tools. And it just provides another opportunity for them also to come to the parish and connect with other couples who are also there as part of the community. So those are the 3 components of that marriage prep side. And then, of course, along the way, the priest is working with them, or sacrament coordinators working with them. If they're getting married at the church, we have someone from the music ministry who'll reach out and help them walk through and plan their music for their liturgy. So every step of the way, we're sort of trying to shepherd them. And I'd say probably our sacrament coordinator is the one who kind of oversees the whole thing to make sure things stay on track.
So I see that you're helping them grow as a couple. Mm-hmm. You're helping them with some of the key issues of communication, conflict resolution, probably diving into family of origin stuff a little bit because we see each other so differently based on that. And those are all just fantastic foundational things that couples probably wouldn't do on their own if you didn't lead them in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, in my practice, if I get one couple a year who reaches out just proactively for marriage preparation, who aren't a part of the church, that's great, right? Because they don't. And as your story alluded to, I think so many times people think it's a hoop to jump through. But once they get involved in our process, they realize, oh, this is actually really helpful. And the advantage of having both, the priest to kind of talk to the spiritual things and things with the church, but also to have a therapist, someone who's outside of that, where they can feel a little more really open to talk about some things that you might not feel comfortable talking about with your priest, or addressing those family of origin issues. And what I like to say is we're also planting a seed. So that way they know, because every marriage is going to hit some snags and road bumps. When that happens, they have people they can reach back out to. And that's been just also a great blessing in our ministries. The fact that people, when they hit a snag down the road, they know they have some people they can reach out to. Whereas what the data tells us is that couples who are struggling wait on average of 7 years before they reach out for help.
And a lot of them probably don't even know who to reach out to, right? They look,
and that's a big part of it. Yeah.
They don't want to get their parents involved either, because there's problems there, or maybe their parents have a marriage that they don't want to repeat. Yeah. And having that mentor couple, having other couples around them that have healthy marriages is a lifeline for them, right?
Yeah.
And they return to that place where they felt loved and where they felt some clarity. So tell us about what happens after the wedding. How do you help make sure that it doesn't just end at the ceremony?
Yeah, it's a great one, because for years, we prepare them, they're all excited, they're great, they go into marriage, and it's like, we don't really see you until you come back to have your first child baptized. And so it's like, we need to have somebody that can, and so about 7 or 8 years ago, someone at the parish, they started, let's just gather these couples who've been married and have dinner. They did it a few times, but then, COVID hit and nothing really happened. But about 5 years ago, then I approached the parish with this idea of, let's start a ministry, we'll call it First 5. And it's couples who are in the first 5 years of marriage. And so what I did is I gathered a team of couples in that age range. And we have events monthly. And one of those couples come to the marriage information, talk about, not only their prepping, going through St. Monica's, but also about this thing called First 5. Come to First 5. The idea being that, number one, you just connect with other couples. So there's the fellowship of that. Number two, we want you to have a great marriage. So there's more formation. Talk some communication, talk some how you deal with your in-laws in the holidays. How do you manage your money? You're thinking about kids, and what does that look like? So a way to kind of get form your marriage. And then it's the 3 F's. So you have fellowship, formation, and then faith. How do you grow together spiritually? How do you grow closer to God? And by offering all of those things, it helps us hit, because some couples, they just want to connect with other couples. Others are really interested in the faith, right? Others we need help communicating. So whatever it is, we're sort of hitting all those buttons for them. And it's our effort, at least, to try and stay connected with them and help them, again, build that good marriage. And also, again, just helps them stay connected with our community. So, it's not First 5. There's so many other ways they can also.
I love that you brought together couples in that age range to help create this ministry and shape it. A saying I've heard is, ministry works best when those who need it lead it. And so if it's a bunch of boomers who, were newly married, 40 something years ago, and they're creating a First 5, they would be a great mentor couple, but they're probably not the ones to create the idea behind it and promote it.
Right? Yeah. It's a great point. One of our meetings, we were talking about finance as a leadership group. Let's have an evening on finances. And their idea was, maybe we bring a couple in to talk about how they do it, right? We said, we have like a mentor couple. One was like, wait, I don't want a couple like who just, the guy manages the money and doesn't have to say it. I don't want someone who's married 100 years telling me that. And so to your point, it's like they wanted somebody who's sort of a little more contemporary, a little more their peer, maybe a couple steps in, who's already started that process. can help them in that next step. So yeah, having the peer leadership team has been great. In fact, what I would say is the folks who've benefited the most from the ministry so far have been the people on the leadership team. Their marriages have grown through their participation in the team, connected with other other couples. And just because they're intentionally thinking about planning a meeting or planning an event, connecting with couples, they're building their marriage. So that's been just a real blessing. Yeah, mostly for them.
I think that's important to remember, is that often when we invite people into leadership or to volunteering, we think about it as inviting them in so that we can get a certain job done or get work done or have roles filled, not thinking about how transformative it is for them to be involved.
I was going to add one more piece to that that's really important, because when we started that ministry, it was really about, I said, the first thing we're doing is we're forming as a team. And so every meeting in the 5 years will always begin with some sort of reflection. It could be just the gospel of the day. It could be a specific question, but they as a couple will share with each other and then have this discussion as a team. And that's going to be the first, could be 15, 20 or longer minutes of the meeting. And we've held it, even when we're busy, right? Because we all get busy, and what's the first thing that we know is, right? Put up for time. Say, no, this is important. We're holding on to this, because if I'm not helping you build your marriage, you're not going to be able to effectively help the couples that come, broader circle of couples that come up with their marriage. So just want to echo that point you were making there.
That is so important for anything that we do, right? Like, so often we just come together as a staff or volunteer leaders and we just jump straight into logistics. And what a great opportunity we have when we bring these people together for formation and for helping them process and actually do what we're asking them to help other people do.
Yeah.
So they're practicing what they preach. That's great. St. Monica's is a big parish. You have a decent budget. I'm sure there's a lot of parish leaders watching this that don't have all of that. What would you encourage them to do? How they could translate this to a smaller scale? Maybe, would it be first reaching out, finding out, are there any marriage and family therapists in your parish that might want to help be a part of this? How would you encourage them to do some of the same? What are the principles they could use to do this on a smaller scale?
Yeah. The first principle connects with what we were just talking about was, are there already couples in your parish, first 10 years of marriage, that are there that you might connect in and engage and start having a discussion about this? And so that way, even if you don't have enough couples to have a marriage information night every month, well, you've got a mentor couple and you've got the priest, and maybe that's just part of that initial, connection. You want to get married here? Great. Let's talk with Father and let's talk. Here's this couple. We're going to reach out to you, have coffee, have a meal, something like that. So if you're a small parish, that's sort of a great way to do it. If you're a larger parish, right, you have the information net where they can all come, as we were talking about. If there is the possibility of connecting with a counselor, I think that was great. Again, because many couples will be comfortable talking about with a counselor some things they might not feel okay talking about with the priest. A lot of the couples just come and think like, oh, it's very sort of contemporary, modern thinking. You have a therapist here. It's not just the priest. So they kind of look at that like, okay, this is a place maybe we can connect in. So those are like the first couple ideas I would mention about it. Because then things like first, to keep them connected, again, whether it's just with a mentor couple or a small group, it doesn't have to cost a lot. It's residency you might have with you.
Yeah, and I just want to say, if you're looking for those mentor couples, Dr. D said, invite them, identify and invite them. Don't announce from the front at the end of Mass, hey, if anyone wants to be a mentor couple, come and let us know. There are people that are going to sign up that you do not want mentoring other couples in your parish. Amen?
Yeah.
So a role like that is so crucial, that needs to be an identify and invite scenario, not a just, cattle call announcement.
Yeah, we just every year just thought as a staff, I'll reach out to them, see any couples they would recommend that might be part of this, and then it's the personal invitation that if they'll say yes to.
And now you probably have couples who've gone through your prep for marriage that help others go through, right? And help others with First Five.
Absolutely. Yeah. Every year it's like, looking at couples who've been coming and seeing who we can sort of say, oh, you'd be great. Why don't you come join our team? That's how we've kind of gone these first 4 years. We're running to our 5th year. So first 5 turns 5 this year.
That's great. Just one last question. Is there a book that you'd really recommend for couples either in prep for marriage or early marriage that would really maybe even help spark some of these conversations that they need to have that are around some of the difficult topics? So whether it be finance or conflict resolution or family of origin, is there anything you recommend in particular?
The books I usually recommend are the ones just help build that good foundation for marriage. So there's The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by John Gottman. He's the #1 researcher on marriage. So his book is going to have lots of data and lots of exercises to do. The other one is called Getting the Love You Want by Harold Hendricks. And that one's going to delve more into the family of origin issues, really help you understand how that is creating the conflict or some of the tension that might be present in your marriage, and give you a great way to communicate through that. So those are the top 2. Yeah. For couples who want more of a spirituality of marriage, A Daring Promise by Rick Gallardi is a great book for spirituality.
That is great. I'm familiar with 2 out of those 3, so I feel ahead of the game.
There you go.
All right. Great. Well, Dr. DiPaolo, thank you so much for taking time today. Appreciate all that you're doing there at St. Monica's. Give our best to Monsignor and Felipe and everybody there. We're grateful for you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. D. And he's actually with us right now. So as he jumps on and unmutes his video, I want to share one other book that I know he will recommend also by the Gottmans. It's called 8 Dates, Essential Conversations for a Lifetime of Love. And it actually outlines 8 dates for a couple to have where they have guided conversations about trust, conflict, sex, money, family, adventure, spirituality, and dreams. I would say for most couples, if they just followed that book and didn't do anything else, they would be light years ahead of most couples going into marriage. But Dr. D, I had one question for you here that Stephen answered online, but I think I'd like to hear from you because I know you deal with this a lot too. It's from a priest. He said most Catholics have been unfaithful or irregular in their practice of Catholic worship, and they feel guilty about it. Nearly all couples are living together. This makes them uneasy, but I want to welcome them. I want to address what the church teaches. I want to cover this gently. Many are living together because it's too expensive. How would you recommend some suggestions for helping them feel less anxious or to disarm them? I know Stephen shared with me a story about a couple that went through prep for marriage with him and didn't know that he worked in the church, and they were saying, hey, should we tell them we're living together? We didn't tell them that. Is that okay? So, Dr. DiPaolo, would you just address that?
Yeah, it's great. I've definitely had some couples like that as well. The first thought that comes to my mind is sometimes like a parent, of one of these couples has this concern because their son or daughter just moved in together with their boyfriend, girlfriend. And I'm like, don't worry, because here's what the couples tell me now. We move in together, we get a dog, and then we get engaged. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen that particular pathway. And I think it just stems back to the welcome and the idea that we welcome you in and we want to help you build a great marriage. And they all know, right, the rules about that. And so it's not like we have to preach to them about cohabitation, but it's engaging them in and helping them see how they want to build that marriage in Christ. And I think that's primarily the way we approach it. Just so again, that they know they're welcome here, regardless of their circumstance. We want to welcome them.
Yeah, Stephen, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I say the same. It's really all about this idea of a relationship building, right? I reflected heavily on this year. I'll talk about this later, but we really need to be more intentional with the people that are right in front of us, like know their story. There's not a single place in scripture where Jesus doesn't meet somebody in the human need before he actually shares the gospel, right? He understands, he enters into that human worry, fear, grief, anxiety, joy, and then he connects the bridge to the gospel. And so I think that's where we have to meet these couples at, right? They have all these things in their mind and they're coming with these preconceived ideas of what they think is going to happen here. And it's transformative when you give them an amazing experience that is collaborative. They're meeting these other couples, they're walking away with these practical tools, and it's going to draw them back into that next conversation, and that relationship will build from there.
Well, Dr. DiPaolo, hang around as long as you can. I'm hoping we'll get some more questions towards the end. And also, you can jump into the Q&A and answer questions. If you'll use the Q&A button at the bottom there, you can answer questions directly as people type them in. And Stephen, we're going to transition on to you. Before we do, I just want to, I've got to pitch myself here a little bit. I always do, because I love helping parishes be great. I love helping parish leaders become more confident in their leadership, gain clarity. I love being someone in their corner that helps cheer for them and give them resources and connect them with other parish leaders around the country. There's a couple pastors that I'm coaching right now that I've just been able to connect them with other folks that are doing great work in an area that they really want to grow in, whether it be family faith formation or something like this, prep for marriage, or even in just leadership. How do I form my leadership team and how do I develop them? I love helping parishes create, especially pastors and parish staff, create a great environment where they love coming to work. They're excited about fulfilling their mission together, and they are seeing great fruit. That's what I want to be a part of. So if you're interested in that, just reach out to me, John at greatcatholicparishes.org. I'll put it in the chat there. But I'd love to talk to you about that soon. So, Dr. DiPaolo, if you'll just mute your video and audio, and then Stephen, if you've watched some of my other webinars, like on A New Vision for Catechesis, you've seen conversations with Dr. Stephen Serafin. He's the executive director of Faith and Family Life Catholic Ministries out of California, but he actually lives in the Garden State of New Jersey. I've worked up there so much, I'm now an evangelist for how beautiful New Jersey is. People should go check it out. But he's the executive director of Faith and Family Life, but he's also the director of faith formation at St. Vincent Martyr in Madison, New Jersey, where he leads an initiative called the Emmaus Coalition of Lifelong Formation, built around that story and the vision of the walk to Emmaus. He's the creator of Endure, which is a marriage enrichment initiative at FFLCM, which we'll share you with a link to that. He graduated from Catholic University with a doctorate in ministry. He has an MA in theology with a focus in evangelization and catechesis from the University of Notre Dame's ECHO program. He has a BA in a business. Is that business administration?
Yeah, it is. But you don't have to go through the whole thing.
You've done it all. What I want people to know is
you didn't say the most important part, that it started with a parish catalyst gathering with you. That just propelled all of this stuff. So
all this started with me. That's basically what you need to know. But most importantly, he is a husband and a father of two, Martha and Philip, 6 and 3. And I share all this to say that Stephen is not only experiencing it, he's been educated on it, and he wrote his thesis on accompanying the next generation of newlyweds. That was his doctoral thesis, a parish model for perfecting the love of marriage. And he has worked out that thesis in the lab of a local parish, figuring out if it really works and adapting it and perfecting it. So all that said, I hope everybody else lends their ear to the wisdom that you have to share with us. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. So happy to be here. As we've talked about many times, is that marriage is one of my greatest passions. And I think if we can get this correct, you're going to see there's a beautiful thing right now, is that the Spirit has inspired so many people to start walking into our doors. But I always ask the question, are we ready to receive them? And this is a very easy, low-hanging fruit thing to be doing to help engage in that way. So I'm excited to to be here and have this conversation with you.
Well, would you start with us with just telling us what in this thesis that you wrote, what kind of model did you come to create out of this study, and just your desire to help parishes connect better with young couples, and your desire for young couples to have a more fruitful marriage and faith life?
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy to think that this is like a 10-year-old thing that I've been going through and wrestling with and trying to do. So we've been married for 10 years. We celebrate a 10-year anniversary this year. But one of the things we learned really quickly is we went through pre-Cana, we did the 2 diocesan experiences we had to do. We met with the priest, but we still really felt very lost. We were trying to merge our lives together, and we didn't have other couples to connect to. We didn't have a mentor couple that we were able to reach out to, ask questions to. And so the main thing that I had found was that we weren't bridging to the lived reality of us as a newly married couple. There wasn't a support system or structure for us to connect to. And then after we were done with the wedding, there was literally nothing for us to engage with at the parish. And so I sort of just took that whole idea and said, like, how does the church find? And so actually, I used a ton of the books that you guys had mentioned. We started to read those as a couple. And I just said, like, why do we have to read all these books and to learn how to do this and then figure out how to implement it on our own? And so I said that the parish should be the place where we can gather together, where we can look at some of these skills, where we can talk about them as spouses, but then we can also bounce ideas and best practices off of other couples who are going through it. We can be connected to people who have done it a couple years ahead of us and learn from them as well. And so I took all that together, and that's where we really created this experience of like, let's begin with the human need. Let's talk about communication, intimacy, how to deal with anger and forgiveness, how to begin to reflect and pray with each other. And then how do we connect those things to how the faith can actually expand those skills, build on those skills. And that really was what became this program. And I have found that like that's like the key recipe is it has to be practical, something that you're always walking away with something important. You need to be connected to other couples to know that you're not alone. All of us feel like we're on an island at times, but every single one is going through those key challenges in marriage. And we don't have to just sit in the negative. We can just learn best practices from each other. And there's things that you know and you've been through that I've never experienced. And so how do we share those with one another? And at the end of my program, the hope is that you see yourself as a supporter of other couples. And in doing that and investing in these other couples are actually going to inspire your marriage even more effectively.
Yeah, and Dr. DiPaolo said that's exactly what happened
Mm-hmm.
at St. Monica's with the folks who joined the team. So tell us about, you launched a marriage enrichment program from the ground up. It hadn't existed before, and you created it. You got people involved. Tell everybody just how that went,
Yeah.
and then how it developed over time. How did you get it started, and how has it developed over time?
Yeah. So you mentioned the most important thing is that it did not start from me talking about it at the parish and launching it and saying, "Oh, you should do this." Uh, and I think that's a lot of times what we do. It's like, "Oh, here's a new initiative. Let's advertise it." But there's one thing, especially with marriage enrichment, a lot of people think, "Oh, I don't need that until I'm wrestling with something or I'm struggling with something." And what I wanted to try to do with this is to create something that's like no, like my wife is the one who coins this. She says this a lot. She says she looks at this as like an oil change. It's like instead of waiting for things to start to like break down, it's like how are we doing these annual checkups, right? These gradual things that are tuning and tweaking our relationship. And so where it really began was, and the first version of Endure just focused on those first 5 years. And so it was really trying to call them, start to have relationships, conversations with them to explain what this was, to hear their story, how marriage has been going so far, and then invite them into this conversation. And so a lot of it began with just having a conversation, like getting in front of them for a coffee, for even if it had to be virtual, but just to have a conversation with them to see, okay, how's the first 2 questions I asked is like, how'd you guys meet? And then how's marriage going so far? What's been some joys and things that you've experienced so far? And that's really what allowed us to do that. So the first time I ran this, I ran it for about 17 couples. There was a list of 50 couples on the list of the last 5 years in that parish that had been married in that parish. And so I called every single one of them. I encouraged them to set up this first initial conversation. And out of the 50, 17 decided to go through the whole program that way.
So I want to highlight that you did the work of connecting with those people. You didn't just send out a generic email asking people to be a part of something. You reached out to them personally and talked to them and invited them. Anyone who's watched my webinars knows that I will say personal invitation is the key to parishioner engagement. I don't care what the topic is, what the age is, anything. So often we just send a bulk email and go, well, nobody responded, or we didn't get many good signups. And of course you didn't. It doesn't work that way, especially when everybody's email box is full of everything. So you invite these first couples to join this program, and then what happens?
Yeah, and so the beginning part of the program was there's that initial conversation of the invitation, but then all of the resources that we have this model of, we call it a visit, where we come in and we have this conversation of just like a 20 minute conversation to dive a little deeper with the couple and hear sort of where they're at, how things have been going. My two favorite questions, again, I ask, it's like, how did you meet and when did you know you wanted to get married? And what I love about that, and this will play into later in the program, is that every single time, and doing with the first 5 years, that spark is very quickly there. They're telling those funny stories. But now that I've done this for multiple couples of all ages, every single age, they immediately, one of them turns to the other, or they like elbow the other person, or they start to snicker. And so you see that spark just that's there, right? Even if it's been like 20 years and they've just been going down and they're coming to this because they really need to rediscover each other. That spark's there, right? That's never gone away. And so we use that in the beginning of the program, where we start to talk about how, like, every single one of you had this joy, you had this excitement. And so there might have been things that have been added over the years that have caused you to spend less time, or caused you to not know that person that's sitting right there. And so hopefully this whole experience is going to help unpack that and allow that spark to come more alive and become alive. And so they do that. They come into this, and I've now run this just on a weekly schedule. And so I normally set it up in January, in the beginning of the year, because most couples are open to try something new right at the beginning of the year. Any other time, it does work in other times, but that's been the time I found it to be most successful. And then our program goes for 5 weeks, and then there's this mini retreat at the end of it. But each of the programs has a little skill that we focus on. They work on that skill collaboratively as a spouse, but then they also hear from a small group of other people. You can put a mentor couple at each of those tables as well, so they hear both sides, the commonality of those people who are around the same age, but then also someone who's a little bit older that can add some more insights into that. And then we give them a date night idea in between each of those sessions, so that they go home and they begin to unpack some of those. And some of those come from like John Gottman's resources, where they do the love map making again, and they're trying to rediscover who that spouse is. What are their favorite things that they have? And then they'll come back and they'll add to that experience and that date night to their conversation the next time. And so it gradually builds. And what I like about this idea is, like, so many, especially guys, I think they're apprehensive to start to go. A lot of them do it because their wife is like sort of pulling them a little bit to come. But what I find is that by the third session, all the guys are more engaged than the wives, right? Like they're finally getting that connection's there, that what they've been looking for has started to happen. They're feeling more connected than they have. And they start to engage more in the conversation. And so it's always fascinating that it's always the third session that it moves over. And that third session is also intimacy. So that's always a helpful one. But it's been exciting to sort of see that develop and grow. The key thing, though, that I find is that we can't feel uncomfortable to just help other couples, right? We get to get up and just have a conversation. All the books that are listed there, 10 years ago, I had no idea anything about them. And how this really began is just Trish and I wrestling with those books together, sharing it with some of our friends, coming up with some ideas. And then my wife she's an ICU nurse. She doesn't really like to get up in front of people. But what's been really beautiful is that we presented each of these when we've run them together. And it really inspires us when we're doing it in our marriage. But we're always, every time we go through it, we're like, oh, we're terrible at this right now, and we're going to present it to you. And we're just very transparent. This is how we're handing on, because the tools are there, right? And we might not be the best user of those tools at that moment, but they're still going to be beneficial in the long run. And so I think we need to get more people comfortable having those conversations. You do not have to have a degree in this. You just need to be comfortable to be able to share from your own personal experience, right? And then use the great resources that are available out there to you to present it to these couples.
Yeah, that's so important what you just said. Programs are great, like content is great. You have the Endure program that people can use, which we'll about in a minute. But, Felipe was telling me about when they started First Five, it was just they'd put couples in circles in a big room and just say, okay, I want each of you to share what are our greatest strengths as a couple, what are our biggest challenges as a couple, and what are our dreams as a couple. That's not a complex curriculum, but somehow in the midst of that, we enrich each other, we get more honest, we feel more comfortable. And like you said, when you're leading as a couple, you all are honest and say, hey, this is something we're still working on. You don't present yourselves as experts who've got it all figured out. And I think most couples are looking for other people to say, hey, we're working on it too. Let's work on it together. Tell us about Endure, the actual curriculum or program that you guys offer to
Yeah.
FFLCM.
Yeah, what we tried to do is take all these tools and resources that we found and put it into like an easy script for people to use. And so that someone can come in, if they get that confidence that they're like, okay, I want to be that main facilitator there. How do we get up and know the things that we're supposed to be saying? Again, you don't have to be an expert in there. The content is there, but it's meant to, those facilitation times where you're talking about that content is meant to then inspire conversation happening at the tables that's happening with the couples. You also can bring in people in from your parish. And so I also encourage like that you find there's definitely going to be a therapist or a family life therapist in your parish. There's somebody who helps with financial planning in your parish. You can have the priest come in and talk about how they're wrestling with forgiveness and struggles and anger can connect to the sacraments that we have. And so we created a little tool that puts them all together in these different sessions and gives you a very systemized way to then talk about these things that are in these books. So a couple might not sit down and go through the whole book, but if you present a simple topic what we get sometimes, the feedback we get is like, oh, I want to go deeper into this. And that's the goal is that you're just giving them sort of like, hey, here are a bunch of like a board of resources that you can tap into. And then as a parish, like maybe host a date night to go deeper on one of those conversations, right? Bring those couples back together. And what I found with the success of this is that those little small groups that come together, they get so connected that they remain connected afterwards. And so there are people who went through my first Endure program almost 7-8 years ago that they still meet as their little couple groups. And now they have kids, and now it's just been growing into the next layer of that. But I think as parishes, we need to become more of these creator of networks, right? Putting these families together, understanding their story, connecting those common stories to each other. And then as a parish, we then just mentor those small group communities. We encourage them to come to those date nights, to the next thing that's happening at the parish, encourage them to get together outside of the parish walls there, but create that support system for them.
So your first time you did this, you had how many couples involved?
17.
17. And how many times have you done this, and how many couples have been through this?
We were trying to figure that answer out. So I think it's been 9 times. And I don't know exactly how many couples have gone through it, but like the last group we had 50 couples experience it. And it's been by word of mouth. Like once some couples go, the next group will talk about it to their friends and encourage them to come in. And so it's been exciting. And then now other people have, because it's now a resource that's on our with our company, like other people have started to use it, right? And some dioceses have started to integrate that into there. But our parishes, so what's ironically is that canonically we actually we're required as parishes to have something that supports marriages, right? But 98% of parishes around the country have nothing after they do pre-cana. And so the goal here is like, how do we just get some little thing that can start to build these conversations, build these relationships? And the recipe is very simple. It's if you can get couples into the room, they feel, and you do that by helping them feel seen, heard, that you connect their needs to what this event's going to fulfill and do. Put them while they're there in a group of people. If they leave each event with something that's going to strengthen their marriage, it's very simple to do. I think we just at times we're so busy and distracted by all the other things we have to get done, and this just sits dormant. But if we really want to capitalize on this group of people who are coming in, right, there is this energy, there is this excitement. I've seen it there's a change that's happening with the pre-Cana couples that are coming in. They're looking for more. They're looking for ways to connect. This gives them a direct connection after that big day, right? And it shows them that the church is there from the very beginning of their family life, that they want to be there to support them in this.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize what you said about the importance of it. This is not something that people are probably going to be writing complaints to your parish about, saying, why aren't you doing more for marriage enrichment? Maybe a couple, but it's not a big pain point for most parishes. And we usually respond to those places that are the pain points, or that we see generate engagement and giving and all of that. But this is something that if you invest in it, it will do all those other things. It will increase engagement. It will increase giving. It will increase serving, and it'll increase the health of your parish. As your marriages and your families become more healthy, your parish becomes more healthy. Just in closing, Dr. DiPaolo mentioned how the couples that went through his Prep for Marriage program became couples who were either in the first 5 or mentor couples. Talk about how these two ministries, whether it be Prep for Marriage or Marriage Enrichment, how they help each other and how they help grow the parish.
Yeah, I think a lot of marriage ministry has been sort of moved into the diocesan level because of the lack of staff or funding to fill those needs that are there. But what I find is that if you invest in the couples that are just there, that are present at your parish in those first 5 years, right? Another key area is around like 15 to 20 years when their kids are getting to high school and into college, right around retirement. If you invest in them and build up those marriages, they immediately want to give back and help other couples. And so I've seen this work so well in the 2 parishes that I have done this in now, and now the parishes I've helped also launch this in other places, is that after a person or a couple goes through that, they're very open to want to help the next layer of this, right? Whether that be hosting a date night, coming to help with pre-Cana and be a mentor couple. And so I started at this current parish 2 years ago. We didn't have a pre-Cana team. We didn't have marriage enrichment stuff. We didn't do date nights. And from just running this now twice at St. Vincent's, we have a group of young couples that want to do regular date nights that are going to be starting up this year. We have a whole pre-Cana team that's running, and they're basically running the whole thing. I don't even have to present anymore. They're doing all the witnessing. They're getting up, doing the conversation. They're running the tables with the couples. And so this creates a process and a system that is going to pump other people into these holes that we have. A bunch of them run our baptism ministry now as well. And so I think we can't wait as a church to invest in this area, right? Because it's such a easy way and a transition to the next thing that's happening. We also say that we want to support the family, and the family starts in marriage, right? But we're not there at the beginning of it. And if we're not there, they're going to look and find that community and support somewhere else. And so the church is about to re-talk about this in October. We're 10 years out from Amoris Laetitia, the Witness of Love, the Joy of Love document that was written 10 years ago. And so I'm excited. I'm hoping that the church is ready to engage in this area, because if we do, it's going to be transformative for our parishes.
I think you made an important point there we need to highlight, is that we often complain about young couples and young families being so involved in sports and all these other things. And a lot of what they're finding there is community. And if we're not providing that community and support for them at the parish, we can't really blame them for finding it elsewhere. They need it. They need the support and the peer relationships. So just in wrapping up here, I'd love for you to just kind of walk through Endure real quick with people. I'm going to share it on my screen here.
Sure.
And it's 5 sessions, but go ahead and tell people what it's about.
Yeah, so we definitely, someone asked in the chat too, do we offer childcare? So we always offer childcare. I tap into some of the past participants to help me with that. Our youth group also helps with that, with the kids. What I do find is that as that goes on, the parents start to figure out their own childcare, because they want to continue the conversation, or they'll do a date night and then come to our event. And so that's an idea. But this is our site. It's fflcm.org, or Faith and Family Life Catholic Ministries. And the whole idea here is really trying to fill that gap of marriage enrichment. And so we're trying to teach these practical skills, form intentional community. And then the last part of it is really to give them a mystical reflection on the sacrament of marriage. Like, we get to tap into a wellspring of intimacy when we're sacramentally married, right? So we believe that the charity that God gives us, the grace that he gives us in marriage, is always pumping into our marriage. And so a lot of psychologists, marriage therapists, we talk about this idea of a love tank or a bank account that we're all putting deposits in so that when we need them, we can take them out. But the beauty about the sacrament of marriage is that we're all of the things that we're doing, the grace that we receive that very day we get married, is putting an exponential amount of love into our relationship. And so we try to get them to that in a gradual way. Each of the sessions, right? The first session really builds that community. Then beyond that, we talk about communication. We are giving them intimacy, love, family of origin, forgiveness and anger. And then throughout all of those sessions, you're talking about this idea of how do they pray with each other. So we give them this little couple prayer that they build each, like a little layer of that each time. But it teaches them a way to communicate through prayer gradually over time. There's a ton of like fun, tangible things that they're doing at the sessions, and then they're also doing some fun, engaging things at home. There's a little participant guide that they get with each of those. And then there's time for small group. There's time for them to have conversations with each other. You bring in these guest speakers from the parish. If you can get that counselor, the finance person, the priest from your parish, so that you can show them that these resources are here, right here at the parish. That's also helpful as well. There's a leader guide that's there. There's also a visit guide for this where you can begin those conversations that are there. But I'd be happy to have more conversations about what this is, how to do it. I also there's like a slide deck that we use for some of them. We don't video it because I truly believe that the presenter who's presenting it is important to this. Like you are going to be that direct connect to them, and they are going to be able to have those ongoing conversations. And so rather than just seeing Trisha and I up on a video, we think I'd rather form you and mentor you in how to do this effectively. And so that's what we do.
That's great. And I love all the stuff that you guys create there. It always looks great and connects with that generation. So Stephen, thank you so much. I'll send people your info if they have any questions on that. And thanks for all that you do, buddy. You're a great guy and a great person out there building the kingdom. And I appreciate you coming to join us.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for all the help.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.